Ladies and gentlemen, Monty Hook here, your host of the Rabbit Hole podcast. Welcome back down the rabbit hole. And today I'm joined by the lovely Amber Hawken, who's down under in Australia. How are you, Amber?
I'm great, Monty. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a real pleasure. I actually saw you speak at an event, I think it was 3 years ago. And you actually impressed me. I'm not that easy to impress. And I can't even remember what you spoke about, but you know what I gathered from that from your presentation was that you're very well rounded in lots of different modalities. So you speak a lot about personal development, anxiety, ego, all these kind of things. But you have also this way of speaking from a almost scientific standpoint. And it really kind of seems to nail the message in. You like me probably living in worlds where it touches on the mystical and the esoteric, and that can get a little bit fluffy sometimes and a little bit hard to navigate and actually create some kind of separation for people. But you seem to have this way of weaving these things together and speak it very articulately. So does that sound fair?
I feel very honoured to receive such a reflection. So thank you. I think it comes from my nature of studying science, medical science background, and then moving into understanding different modalities of healing and psychotherapy. Yeah. So I really try and bring those together because myself, I'm a grounded person. Yeah. So it's in my nature.
So what are you known for, Amber? What are you known for?
Depends who you're asking. I have two very different but simultaneously paradoxical teachings in the work that I do. And let me answer it as direct as I can before I go down a rabbit hole myself. If I was to simplify it in its most basic form, it's showing people the experience of what it is to connect to themselves well beyond their mind in a state of experiential presence within their beingness. Yeah. And I can't make that scientific.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, it sounds so simple, but there's so many complexities and so many layers of things that, we have to navigate and deal with in our lives. And I think, and maybe you can kind of chime in here, but I mean, where I found real peace for myself in, especially unraveling the spiritual side of me and pulling out the layers and dealing with my ego. And I've come to peace with the idea that the journey is never ending. I think at some stages of the journey, we think that there's some place to arrive at. Like we're trying to fix ourselves, right? The place we're coming from is we need to fix ourselves. And I think when we can have that kind of acceptance of there's no place to get to, I'm just going to be healing forever, and there's going to always be layers because there's, I can always get better, and there's past lives and all this kind of stuff. Can you chime in on that? Because I kind of feel like, for the longest time, I was trying to fix myself, and this is my observation now of people is like they don't even realize how far they've come, but they still have this element of trying to fix themselves and not accepting where they're at.
Thank you so much. And it's a really valuable question. It's really valid, and it has a multifaceted answer. So I'll do my best to be concise. There are a few points that you said that I'd love to reiterate and touch on. And that was that you said I was coming from a place of fixing myself. And herein lies, let's just say, the problem, because wherever we're coming from is the energy that we're embodying, which then therefore we will experience the world through that lens. So on a psychological level or on a neurological level, our mind, there are about 11 million bits of information coming in every single second, Monty, every second. And in order for us to, we can't take that all in through our five senses. We just can't do it. Of course, we've got different senses and the energetic body and all that kind of stuff that, that mystical side, but just touching on here on our humanity, to be able to take that in, our brain has to go, cool, what can I generalize, distort, and delete down into 5 to 7 chunks? 11 million, 5 to 7. And that's what comes in. So the real question is here, and the real, I think, beautiful, liberating, can I swear?
Yes.
Fucking thing. The beautiful, most liberating fucking thing ever is to realize that we can influence that lens. We can change basically our receptors. So when we think about the body and we think about the blood and we think about receptors in our nutritional receptors switching on and off, or DNA switching on and off that we've kind of heard about and spoken about, we can come to a place within ourselves, either using breath, practice, mindfulness, meditation, presence. You can also experiment with, psilocybin, psychedelics, LSD, plant medicine, all of that kind of stuff. But I love to go to the things that we were born with, like our breath and presence. And we can get to a state of coherence within ourselves where we come back to balance and neutrality. And then we're able to sit back and observe what those 5 to 7 chunks are that filters the information of the world coming through. So 11 million bits, 5 to 7 chunks. Coming back now to what you said so many people experience, do, view themselves as, and this is why we stay on a continuous cycle of never feeling satisfied, never feeling whole, never being able to feel like we are integrity, never feeling like we have arrived. Because the truth is we're already there, and I'll break that down a little bit more, but when we can come back into complete connection to the present moment within ourselves, and we take that journey 6 inches, as Marianne Williams says, from head to heart, and not just our physical heart, but our innerness, our innermost essence. There is no such thing as never arriving. It's like trying to say to you, sit down, when you're already sitting. So when there is one of those filters of what chunks down is like, I'm fixing myself, or I'm always healing, or I'm never there, that is all you will see. It's all we will see when we have that on. It's what we will find. It's the vibration that we will hold. It's the magnetic force that we become, and it's never ending. And the other very fucked up paradigm is that healing is hard, and then we have to suffer. And I have been through that myself, and I have been through personal dark nights of the soul and Saturn return and all of this shit. My mum having a sudden heart attack overseas, and my boyfriend at the time, who I thought I was going to marry, telling me that strong women don't cry, and me realizing on the spot on the airplane, fuck, I can't be with you. I have to break up with you, but I'm just going to get through the funeral first, and then we shut our company, all of this stuff. So I get that there are moments in life that are really hard, and I don't want to take anyone's experience or pain or hurt away. That's not what I'm doing here. And at the same time, when we can come from a place of openness and understanding that the only part of us, or that there's a part of our psyche that is never satisfied, that will never feel whole, that cannot experience deep contentment, then what we can do is differentiate between identifying with that part of our psyche and being able to observe it and sit back in our being and know that evolution is our nature. Rather than heal, I've always got to fix myself, or there's something next. It's just evolution is my nature. And I can come from that place of openness and peace within myself here and now, no matter who you are or where you are in your life.
Yeah. So, I mean, my relationship with the healing practices, if you like, is I'm checking in with myself every day. I'm meditating. I've done a lot of plant medicine and different things, and really, I've got no problem doing the shadow work and looking really deep. And it's difficult. It's hard, but I'm comfortable with the idea that that's something I want to do, and keep doing. And so I want to ask you, what are we all looking for? You said before about connectedness, like is that the thing that we can articulate that we're actually searching for? Like what is it we're searching for? Because our mind likes to make up all sorts of stories and different things about what we think that we're looking for. And it's usually always external. It's in, you know, in our life purpose, in our career, in our relationships, and everything external. But can you articulate, like, what is the core of what we're actually searching for? Why the fuck are we here, Amber? Big question.
Just a small one, Monty, and a casual Wednesday morning.
What's the meaning of life, Amber?
Look, I'm just a ginger girl from a country town, but I'll give it a good crack. I'd love to give some context if that's okay, because I feel it's really important. The reason that I feel that, Monty, that you're asking me this is probably because of the way that I've spoken or something that's landed for you. So I want to take that into account. And when I'm answering this question, I'm answering from a perspective of someone who has watched people meet themselves very deeply and then express to me in words or description of what that felt like, which is really important to understand. I saw that you interviewed Ryan Whitewolf, right?
Yes.
I think he's an incredible healer through his words, his voice, his everything. I think he is impeccable with his capacity to take people to that place. So music as an example. And so just to give you context of what I'm doing, I can only point to experience which you may have had, which you didn't actually realize you got what you were looking for. So when you may have listened to a song that cracked you so open and stopped you in your tracks, and your mind quietened for a second and you felt open and alive and connected, and like everything was completely and utterly perfect. That's what we're looking for. The mind thinks it's outside. And I truly believe that our ego desires and the things that we want to go after are absolutely fine to go and do, because that deeper part of ourselves likes to express itself and experience itself as a human form. That's kind of what we're here to realize ourselves. So we don't need to make ourselves wrong for being human or chasing things or wanting stuff. I think it's a beautiful part of the journey. I feel like if we look back and we look at the bits and pieces that pulled us forward, where we were, I want to go and do that. I want to create this. I want to get that. You know, I want to build the best podcasting studio in the planet in Bali, and it's going to be phenomenal. That journey, if that lights you up from the inside, then that journey is obviously the universe's invitation to say, hey, we want to go here because there's something along our evolutionary path for us there. So I feel like we can come into harmony with those desires and those dreams. But I think here's the key. Know that what you're looking for is always inside, and use your practices on the daily or your breath in every moment as often as you can to live from that place for which your mind says is outside of you, so that everything else on the outside is a fucking bonus.
Yeah. So I mean, I think for most people, everybody can relate to what you're saying, those micro experiences of, you know, and then overwhelming emotions and even crying and, you know, what is this? But when you don't understand what that is and you don't experience it regularly, you kind of just brush it off and like, oh, what is that? And then I think
scary, probably.
Yeah. And then when you experience that, you know, on a daily basis, you start to, this is my experience, is you start to realize that that's the normal. Like that's it. And all these things that I'm doing in my life, you know, whether it be a business, whether it be a relationship, whatever the external thing is, that's a mechanism for me to express myself. It's not about the vehicle. It's not about the tool. It's not about the business. It's, you know, because we get so wrapped up in trying to articulate our life purpose. Like, what is my life purpose? And we always look in something outside, like it's the business, and we put power in that thing, not realizing that the power is always here. That's just a vehicle for us to express ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. 100%. It's that you've heard the term self-realization. That's all it is. You tuning into what is pulling you forward and acting upon that and living from that place.
Yeah.
When you hear, okay, life just wants to express itself through you, that's all it means. Like, let's just bring it down, ground it. Right. that's what it means. So whatever makes me feel alive and expansive, that's what I need to follow. That is what expression self-realization is, because in those moments is when you will feel so open. It's so much simpler than our ego makes it out to be, because it becomes spiritual materialism. Our mind's like, oh, let me make a thing out of getting there. And when you get to a certain state of awareness, and I've experienced this so many times in my life myself, and perhaps, I don't know if you can relate, that there is this sense of like, holy shit, I have absolutely everything that I have desired. Is there something wrong now? And the mind will then look for something wrong, because we have, we've kind of been born into this paradigm where chaos is the norm. Drama is the norm. Complaint, victim, proving, defending, judgment, criticism, shame, blame, guilt. These are normal states of existence, because we have been living through our pain instead of being able to disidentify from it and open and feel and heal that. So we've acted from that place, and that's been the norm. Then what that means is, because our nervous system remembers that, our neural wiring remembers that, the 5 to 7 chunks remember that, our body remembers that. And so we get to this beautiful, healthy, balanced place, and then the mind goes, if only I had that now, or now I need this, or it looks for something wrong to recreate that experience. So our daily practices are so important. So we increase our tolerance for contentment.
And for me, I'm just reflecting on, some of my thoughts for myself. Is like, because we seem to have this massive, like you said before, you can weave this spiritual side with the desires and have that all integrated. But I think along the journey, you can have these spiritual moments. And then, for myself, I start asking these questions. Well, why couldn't I just be more content with those things? Why couldn't I just open a coconut stand on the beach and just do that all day and go surfing and nothing else? And it's like my mind wants to go and then look for that, and it always seems to be
making yourself wrong.
Yeah,
like it's just another habit of the ego to go into making yourself wrong. That's all that is. And then we think, what do I do with that? I'm like, don't fucking do anything with it. It's just a thought.
Yeah. So how do we? So how do we unravel that? Like, how do we? Because if that's kind of the source of so much of the disconnection. And how do we start to unravel that? Like, is that a self-love thing, or is it different for everybody? How do we unravel that? Yeah.
Self-love, I love that you said that. For me, it implies that there is something to not love, is it a self-love practice? And it's really common, and it is genuinely expressed through people who feel connected, like, oh my God, I love myself. So it is a way that we put language to an experience. But truly, a practice of self-love is, implying that there is a brokenness to you. And again, just thought patterns. So to answer your question, how do we undo it? One of my teachers said at actually a retreat I just taught, and she was one of the facilitators, kind of like my left hand. I got my right hand and my left hand. And she said the most beautiful fucking thing. And I was like, that's it. There it is. And her name's Beanie Tompkins, to credit her. And she said, your true self, your higher self, you at your essence will never, ever, ever do yourself harm. Ever. Will never cause you harm. So to be able to discern and differentiate what's true, as in what we can listen to and act upon or take in, and what's just the mind, and what we can actually notice and be like, oh, and just let it go and come back, is any thoughts that make you wrong, that come out of judgment, blame, shame, guilt, proving, defending, victim, we can be sure that we do not need to give those thoughts energy or attention. Because those thought patterns are usually just a cover-up and mental masturbation to get away from a feeling. So if we can hear that and go, got it, mind, drop back into my body. What is it that I'm feeling? Can I come back in? Is there something I need to open up around? Because you're probably contracting if you're up in your head thinking that kind of stuff. So let's use that example, that you made up. Why don't I just do coconut stand? what feeling does that create in you when you believe that thought?
Well, it feels a little bit hollow, I guess.
Got it. Great. So if you hear it and go, I'm questioning what I knew before was true for me, and it sounds like a part of that is making me wrong. So I can assume that's coming from fear. Great, beautiful. Thanks for directing me back in. Come back in, feel. What am I really feeling underneath the hollow? Maybe underneath the hollow when you sit, there will be judgment that, oh, it's not, I want too much. Or maybe fear of not feeling content, or fear of chasing something, or fear of getting it wrong, or fear of doing it all and then realizing I didn't need to do it. And so you can just sit with and notice, oh, fuck, there's a little bit of scarcity under there, or a little bit of fear.
Yeah.
And just sit with that, breathe, open, and let it move through you and come back and keep going.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, and this has been, one of my greatest, probably my greatest achievement in my whole life is being able to catch myself. Like when something comes up, I'm so quick at catching it now. And it used to be the case that I would catch it, but it would still kind of overtake me. Like that's the first part, catch it first. But now I'm very good at like dropping in and going, okay, why is that there? And it's like that's what you're saying about the observation, like being an observer to that and being able to look at that objectively. Like what is that thing, and what is the source of that, and where does that come from? And as you were speaking before, what was occurring to me was in relationships, especially romantic relationships, the triggers are magnified, right? Everything is like, here's a spotlight, and those things kind of come through us. And I'm single, but I recently had a relationship situation, and it's the first time I've kind of been able to kind of look at, how I had have been in the past before. I would have been so frustrated. I would have been so judgmental. I would have been angry, and I was able to just like not have any of it. And I was able to just give love and just like be like, that's, and that was a massive reflection on myself, was just how far I've been able to come. But the way I was able to do that was really start to become meticulous about my responsibility for that. And one thing that I was, doing a little bit of homework and watching your Instagram videos and stuff, which are really awesome, by the way. Make sure you go check out the 10, 15 minute videos, really powerful stuff. One of them you were talking about radical responsibility. And is this, so talk us through the radical responsibility, and is this what we're generating through radical responsibility, like this ability to catch ourselves and be meticulous with ourselves?
Yes. And I love that you said that. And what you're talking about there is sovereignty, is the acceptance or just the understanding that I'm responsible for my actions, for my feelings, and my experience of life, and the experiences that I've co-created. And the mind can sometimes sneak in and go, so it's my fault that this happened. No, before it goes there, absolutely not. This is just a deeper understanding for the way in which you are so connected to life through your thoughts, through your feelings, through your breath, through the energy that you hold, through the vibration then that you emanate, right? Because we are all at our tiny little, like the tiniest little length of energy is called a Planck's length. Max Planck found this, like a Planck's length. So our energy and our frequency has a ripple effect. And Greg Braden talks about the divine matrix in its sense. So the consciousness itself of the universe is experiencing through a projection and an observation at the same time, and we're part of that. And so it's shifting from the perspective that life is just occurring and we're just kind of in it. And we got to feel something or do shit, and we want to feel that or do this. And it shifts that from being like, fuck, I'm a part of this. I play a beautiful, vital role, and I can actually work with my own beliefs that I choose, perspectives that I hold on to, feelings that I sustain or maintain, which impacts our vibration, which ripples out and co-creates life. And when we get that, just that concept, then we can be free. And that's like, that's kind of like being a kung fu in energetics of your own sovereignty. And this is not to like get esoteric or out there. This is you and your humanity. This shit you have full control of. And that is liberating. For me, that's exciting. I'm like, sweet, because I can work with this. And then if it's something that feels like it's out of my control and I've done all of that, then guess what? Then it's trust, implicit trust in self and complete surrender to what is. So you come into the flow of that. So coming back to what you said around, is that generating this from that place? Am I generating that when I take radical responsibility? You are generating your capacity to not live through the lens that there's anything to defend or anything to protect or anything that you cannot experience. Because the reason that we protect and we project and we go into blame, shame, judgment, guilt, proving, defending, is because that energetically or emotionally there may be a fracture and a disintegrated part of ourselves, which creates shadow, which is something we avoid, which is a mental pattern. And so we don't want to feel that. And so the controller within us, like the very, 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 very cunning part of us goes, I'm going to put this around that and I'm going to get as far away as I can at that. And I'm going to look externally for who's responsible for this discomfort I feel inside.
Yeah. So one thing that's coming to mind also is when we have this feeling that like I need to fix myself, I need to heal myself, there's some work that I need to do, even if we have, some quality positive language around it. Yeah. There seems to be this tendency to kind of go, all right, well, I'm going to remove myself from the situation. I'm going to go and heal myself. I'm going to do that work. And then when I feel ready, I'm going to come back into that, right? Now, what I want to ask you is that the right course of action, or should we be jumping into the fire?
Yeah. Great question. And what came to me as you were saying that is it's different for every single situation. It's completely different for every single situation. I think the more, it's not more honest, but the question that we can ask ourselves is, am I harming myself by remaining in this situation if I'm trying to do both at once? Yeah,
I understand. So,
am I creating more chaos and damage to that, impacting that other person and myself if I'm to stay in the fire, so to speak? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and kind of having that objective view of, if I was to put myself in the fire, am I going to is that going to actually help me and move forward? And whilst it's going to be painful, can that serve me? Or if I'm choosing to stay out of it and want to heal myself, am I doing that out of fear, or is that actually the right thing for me?
Yeah. Is that a question?
No, I was just reflecting back on my observation of that. So look, a lot of the work that you do involves breath, and you've been talking about breath a couple of times through this. Talk us through that, because obviously this comes up a lot, and breathing is not something that we're taught. And I don't think that humans understand the power of their own breath. So talk us through what you teach people around breath and why.
Okay, so I'll answer the why first, because I think that that's the most important bit. So to give some perspective, when I first moved out of being a radiation therapist, so I used to treat cancer. I went to university, studied Bachelor of Medical Science and graduated as a radiation therapist. Then when I decided that I didn't like white walls, roofs, or I didn't like a reductionistic approach to healing. And in general, I just didn't really like the rules. I went in to look at ways to work with what it is that makes us sick, both in our mind, our emotions, and our body. And so that's when I started to study different modalities of regression therapy, inner child healing, timeline therapy, neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, somatic healing, somatic sensing, mindfulness, meditation, yoga teaching. And I went in to look at these different plethora of all of this. Breathwork came along in about 2000. I actually studied it in 13, but I didn't realize then how amazing it was. It was later that in my career that I was like, I came back to it. So during all of this study, I shifted into working with people, and you could say, whether or not you want to call it therapy or coaching or healing, I don't know. I just started working with people, and I was very much interested and pulled in people with addiction and deeper trauma. And this could be just a reflection of things that really interested me, or a reflection of things that I had learned and grown up in, because I moved out of home at 14 because it was in a really, my household was quite abusive, and there was a lot of domestic violence. My mum was an addict. My parents broke up when I was 3. All of these, I had these different experiences, and I was so deeply curious as a kid to understand what drove people to do that. So that might be that reflection. It wasn't like I chose to go and work with addicts. It's just that that's who I pulled in. And when I started working with them and doing deeper healing work, which it can be called soul retrieval or integration or shadow work or regression, it comes many different forms. What I noticed, or what I found, is that healing itself is the process of creating enough space in someone's mind and energetic and emotional body through facilitating an experience so they can shift back away a little bit and create a different view of that situation, so that energetically, psychologically, emotionally, how they see the situation changes, and therefore the situation reflecting energetically and emotionally in their body changes.
So is this is this also partly, I mean, the world that we're indoctrinated into kind of says, and the medical industry kind of has us be led to believe that diseases are something that just kind of happen to us, and we don't have power and we don't have control, right? So what I'm hearing in you speaking there is really taking that ownership and power, getting the power back to you, and that objective view of this is what's actually happening. It's like, no, I didn't catch that thing. It's like, no, I'm creating this thing, and if I'm creating this thing in my body, well, then I then have the power to recreate or uncreate or whatever.
Yes and no. Yes and no. This is not my area of expertise. People who would be better to, turn to for that are people like Dr. John DeMartini, Greg Braden. Who else is in the top of my mind? People who really teach about psychosomatics and that experience. And the reason that I say yes and no is because what I have found over the years, because sometimes I've worked with people with cancer, is that it's not always I've created this, so how do I get rid of it? It's like, what do I need to see? Like, what do I need to see? Because the body talks to us. It's a communicator. It's a real-time communicator. And sometimes we don't listen to life itself, and therefore our body might speak up for us. And it might not be that there's something that we are doing wrong. It just might be something that we need to see or hear or reflect upon. And maybe an ailment, inverted commas, may be part of our journey. So I wanted to just slide that in, because I used to think exactly of what you said. And then over the years, I realized, actually, sometimes maybe it'll never shift. Maybe in this lifetime it won't. And the reason that I say that is because that allows us to relax and not make it a thing. Yeah. And that's a really important part of healing. So coming back to a shift in perspective, right? That's all that healing really is at its finest, is a shift in perspective, and choosing a different perspective, being able to see a different perspective. When then I work with people as far as performance and business and growth and leadership and expansion and creativity, I work with a lot of artists. They just kind of popped into my world, like singers and writers and authors, and that's really fun. So helping them go the other way, not from pain or out of this dark place, but actually from neutrality, wanting to expand. It's the same thing. Breath gives us that perspective almost immediately. And it can take us, depending on how we breathe, because there are so many different ways, it can take us to places within ourselves that people usually experience on psychedelics. Yeah. And that is profoundly phenomenal because it gives us a deeply objective view, sometimes out of body, sometimes deeply visual and psychedelic, just from the way in which we breathe. And that's why I fucking love the breath, because it puts the power back in our hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had some wild experiences on plant medicine, and then I've had, like, the first time I did, like, do you call it holotropic breath work, where I was having an experience like I was on plant medicine. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? How can this happen? It's like just from the breath. And so my question to you on that is, like, how do we get it so wrong with breathing? Like, what are we doing wrong in terms of, I mean, nobody teaches us the breath. So is there a correct way of just going about the breath all day, every day, that we're not doing correctly, that we haven't been taught?
Damn straight. Thanks for leading that, Monty. So I have another business called Karma & Co. that is building an app currently to teach this.
This is an app, right? This is an app?
Yeah, it'll be. Cool. I want to say February, but everything always gets pushed back. But let's just go with February.
Well, let's just make sure we follow Amber and stay tuned.
Yes. So essentially, this is diaphragmatic breathing is as ancient as they come. The yogis used to do it forever and ever, and they've taught it forever. So diaphragmatic breathing, though, isn't specified whether it's through the mouth or the nose. I specify through the nose only, and with your attention, you bring it back to the breath, and with your body, you remain grounded. So there's kind of like 4 aspects there. So firstly, context-wise, I'll geek the hell out now because I love it. If we're not breathing efficiently, then we're breathing inefficiently. That's simple. Inefficient breathing is basically how most people breathe all day, every day without knowing it. Inefficient breathing looks like not even in rhythmic, so uneven and not necessarily chaotic, but shallow and up in the chest. So most people are breathing only through their chest, so the top part of their lungs, and they're not using their diaphragm.
So what's the symptom? What's the symptoms of not breathing right? Is it not enough oxygen through our bloodstream?
So your heart rate variability will become uneven and unrhythmic, and your heart speaks to your brain 60 more times than your brain speaks to your heart. So it goes zoom through the vagus nerve up to the brain, and it says, "Hey, we're in a state of stress here. We just need to fire some stuff up." And so unconsciously, even without knowing it, if you're shallow chest breathing, then your body, your brain will have been being told via your heart rate variability, we're in a state of stress. We need to go into fight or flight. Yep. So you will have more cortisol, more adrenaline, and your reptilian brain will fire up. So that's how you will experience life. Most people breathe like that. So if you take more than, let's say 8 breaths, as in you're breathing. So if I was to say, okay, count how many breaths you do in a whole minute, and you were like 8 to 12, your body is in a small amount of stress. That's most people. So when we close down our mouth and breathe through our nose, and we have even counts in, the optimal is about 5.5 counts, but you can start with 4. So you breathe in, and you can place your hand on your chest or your belly. When you place it on the belly, you want to use that and breathe in through your heart space as you do this. So inhale through the nose for 4, 3, 2, 1, and your bellies will rise, and then gently exhale through the nose for 4 counts as well.
So not holding it, you don't hold the breath?
No hold. No. Nope.
Just
because this is what we can do always, all the time. So inhale gently. So none of that you hear in yogi. So you want to be, if I was sitting next to you, like right next to your throat, I wouldn't be able to hear the air going through your throat. It's so gentle. It's so even and rhythmic. So 4 counts in, belly rise, 4 counts out, belly fall. And as you're breathing through your heart, because it'll open your heart area, and we can measure that about a meter outwardly, the frequency of the heart expanding out, and it expands it out greater. And that opens up, and we begin to think with our heart and love with our head from that space. It also it tells our brain, hey, now we're in Western Digest. So the heart rate variability will become even and rhythmic. like this. And then the vagus nerve will travel, the information will go up, 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 and it'll say to the brain, hey, chill out. Turn those stress hormones down, turn those happy ones up, open up the prefrontal cortex. Let's use our limbic system, like our emotional processing in a really beautiful way. Let's go into a state of innovation and imagination, right? Then we are more open to life. That alone, breathing in that way, it also strengthens. And when you bring your attention back to your breath, like as in nothingness, it's a meditative practice while remaining grounded in your body. So in your feet, in your sacral. These will increase your proprioception and interoception, which will increase your emotional intelligence because you can tell what's going on inside of you, and your capacity to be able to focus on one thing at one time whenever you desire, rather than your mind feeling like it's out of your control, will strengthen your brain can change. Neuroplasticity tells us that brain can physically change, and it will strengthen our corpus callosum, which takes that information from the back of our brain to the front of our brain. And it goes, shoom. So when the world comes in, it goes, instead of stopping at our reptilian brain and going boom, 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 it goes, okay, let's go here now. And we can process this. This is why we go like this when we want to think, right? Because it gets blood to this part of our brain.
So that's bringing the deep subconscious creative, elements that are there that kind of a little bit suppressed, or that they don't get the opportunity to kind of come out, and they come to the forefront.
Well, yeah, it kind of opens our mind so that inspiration can come through, or information and insight comes up. We cannot be inspired or innovative when we're in fight or flight. So breathe like that. That's breathing efficiently, and we can do that always, except for when we're talking and exercising and sleeping. So, I mean,
to start this process, it's, for the average person, it's going to sound like a lot of hard work to think about that all day, right? So is it like maybe just every hour you just tune in and re-regulate, and then eventually that time span kind of becomes shorter and shorter, and then ideally you end up breathing like that all day. Yep. Is that the process, or?
One of my favorite breathwork teachers, Dan Brulé, teaches 10-10-10 times 2. So 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, and every single hour of your day that you're awake, you stop, and it's about 10 times. You stop and do it for 2 minutes.
So this is just like you've got nothingness, just you and your breathing.
You and your breathing. You can keep doing you can be working on your laptop and keep breathing if you can.
Yeah.
If you can. At first, you might find that difficult because you're retraining your muscles. These muscles are used to working. Your diaphragm muscles aren't. So you can, I would do it at first for the first couple of days without doing anything else. Without doing anything else. So 10 in the morning, 10 at night, first thing when you wake up and before you go to bed are perfect times. And then throughout the day for 2 minutes, 10 times.
Yeah, it seems like breathing can be an access to so many different things, like just a gateway to a greater level of awareness and understanding your body, and like what you were saying before about the body is trying to talk to us. But I think, when we're in that state of fight or flight all the time, we can't hear it. And once we can tune into that, it just, for me now, it's inherent. Like I know how to listen to my body. I know when to fast. I know when to eat meat, when to stop eating meat. I've tuned into this, and that's by that stillness, like removing myself from those things, and fasting, intermittent fasting. And so is that something else that you promote, fasting?
Intermittent fasting?
Yeah.
Yes, in different ways. Yep. Again, this isn't my area of expertise, but I'll give you my perspective. So fasting can be really dangerous for women who are still menstruating in their life. So most people don't know that. There's a lot of research on it because fasting kicked off, especially like intermittent fasting, kicked off crazy.
Yep.
When I do it, it's always at a certain time of my cycle. It's right in the center of my cycle. And I only do it for a short amount of time, and I really support myself either side. So, because otherwise it really stuffs up women's menstrual cycles. It can. I don't want to say it does because I'm not the expert here, but I have so many people surrounding me who know that and do it for a living, who I know that through and my own experience. And we also juice fast on retreat. So the amount of research we've done has been very thorough and deep. So yes to fasting. I love it. I actually love the kind of fasting, Nam Baldwin is one of my a friend that I know, and he's a teacher, and he recently was doing 1 day of 24-hour fasting every single week for 8 weeks to help one of his discs in his back heal, because it shows that you go into an extreme healing state after, I think it's 18 hours.
Yeah, it's even through like 72 hours is when your body starts to generate its own stem cells after 70 to 72 hours. So I've actually just like 2 days ago said to myself, for this whole next year, I'm going to do a 3-day fast every month. So
it's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
My assistant's husband does 1 day every week.
Yeah. And look, I think the other reason why I like fasting is because it's a practice of discipline, which then it's given me so much access to other disciplines. It's like you think that something like that is hard when you've never done it. And then when you do it and you go, actually, that's not that hard. And the next time it's like even easier. And then it just becomes really, really easy. And then your mind then kind of latches onto this idea that, well, what else was I thinking, that I was telling myself that I couldn't do, that now I have access to be able to do.
100%. That's why daily practices are so important. It is a new paradigm.
Yeah.
In the yogic philosophy in Sanskrit, they call it tapas, building your fire, your inner fire, is doing your daily practice to build that skill of discipline, because that ripples into your entire life. And there's a guy called Ananda. He's a teacher in this area. And I remember one day I was at one of his classes, and he's like, busyness is irresponsible chaos. And I was like, oh, you're right. And then he went on to talk about tapas and our practice and what that does for life. And it's essentially just a respect for the life that you have and your capacity to experience life at its fullest by having those disciplines.
Yeah. And this is one thing that I've really learned in ceremony, in plant medicine ceremonies. It's not just, when you first do it, you think it's just about the medicine, right? And it's like, I'm just take the medicine, dealing with myself. I've got my own shit to deal with. But when you sit in the ceremonies enough time and you sit in really well-run teepees that are meticulous, you really see the sacredness of how everything is done. And then you start looking and going, wow, like that is next level shit. And like I've picked up so much wisdom from just observing the sacred nature of how these things are done, and because it's so meticulous, and it kind of gives you the insights of just how even though I'm disciplined, like just how much more I can go, and it gives me the observation of where I'm messy in my life, where I don't need to. So now I try to be as disciplined as I can and keeping everything clean. It's like if I need to go to the dentist, it's like I'm not going to wait 2 years. It's like, no, I'm going to book the dentist and I'm going to do it now. If there's something I need to clean up with somebody or a family member, it's like, no, clean it up and do it now. Because those things, I think they eat away at us, but we don't realize it. We don't realize that. We don't realize that's taking up spacing and it's really not serving us.
Yeah, I love it. And similar to you, watching the sacredness of when I learned to do ceremonial breath work and work with hape, like Rapacito medicine from the jungle, which we use. We do Rapacito or we do hape, and then we move into holotropic or circular breathing or connected breathing. It's one of
so you're doing the hape and then the breath work off the back of it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It's next level.
That's beautiful.
It's amazing. And when I was being taught to work with that, what I did and what I was taught to do was like bring that sacredness and that level of intention into everything that I do. Yeah. It changed my life to look at life like that.
Yeah, because what happens, and I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but okay. I mean, and I'm not encouraging people to go and do hape. It's like I think people should, find these things for themselves if they feel called to it. But the thing with hape for me is that it just amplifies everything that is there. Like if I'm messy in my life, it's like that's going to come through and I'm going to get a headache, and like I've purged hard of heartache because like I wasn't clean. Like, but then there's times I'm really grounded and I feel really at peace, and the experience is so beautiful. It's just like I just get to be with the medicine. And what I observe is where I'm trying to fight the medicine because it's strong, and like when I try to when I'm trying to fight it, it's like that's highlighting how I am showing up in my life. What am I fighting? What am I fighting in my life? And it's beautiful. 100%. It's beautiful.
I couldn't have said it better. And when I have sat in ceremony, every time beforehand, Rapacito has given me my insight, and I tend to carry it through with grandmother. And then that's why I was really called to work with it more closely, more intimately, and do some training and dietas around it and stuff like that. And this is what I always say to people before we serve them, because thank goodness hape is still legal, so we can do it in a ceremony context and things like that in Australia very easily and openly. It's before we serve, I say you just come back to your breath, because it is a teacher of surrender.
That's what it is.
Because wherever you are holding on, it will push back at you. And you will probably feel the desire to purge. You will feel maybe afraid. You'll want to
run away.
You just come back and you let it move through you, because it just cracks your heart open. Stills those left and right hemispheres of the brain and amplifies everything, amplifies intention.
No, that's cool. Let me take a bit of a tangent. Like, I mean, you've come from a medical training background, and you've got a very formal training, and now, you're doing all sorts of different work, and you've molded all these things together and weaved them together very beautifully, I think. What's your take on the medical industry? Are you okay to talk about this? Because I feel like, especially in 2020, a lot of truths are coming out. A lot of people are getting a lot of insights into maybe that industry and pharmaceuticals, and maybe there's a not so pure agenda. Let me put it that way. That's the really soft way of me saying it. But what's your? Do you have an opinion about any of that? And what is missing from the medical industry? Because it seems to me that the kind of work that you do is far more powerful and healing than, going to the general practitioner and he's going to tell you to take this drug and this drug.
Yeah. I feel like in every single industry, there's distortion, confusion, and people who don't have a full perspective. I know a lot of incredible doctors who their life is dedicated to supporting people heal and get healthy. My personal experience of going through the system, from a perspective, I can only talk from my perspective of healing, of cancer therapy, not healing cancer, is that we're learnt to treat a disease. We break the person down, we study the disease, we study the nature of it, we learn how it grows in the body. We look at perhaps some studies around incidence and as in like how often it occurs and what different influences might increase incidence or show when they look at that certain perspective and what studies look like. And we learned how to take care of sickness. But not once at university did I learn how to become healthy.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. And I would say the exact same thing about all the different perspectives or viewpoints going on this year around what's gone down. So same thing. Do
you think, and this is, you don't have to answer this, this can get squirrely, but do you think that what you were taught in that formal medical training, that lack of self-healing, that lack of understanding what is health, do you think that is done on purpose, or do you think that it's just so deeply cultural in the training and in the institution that it's just been lost along the way? Or do you think that there's people that know what they're teaching has very important elements missing to keep the power away from people?
when I was there and when I left, I would have just said, and I would have known this, and I still know it in my heart, the people who go and study that, I was that person. We just want to help.
Yeah.
We love it.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. And the people that you teach, your teachers, your lecturers, the people that support you, you're like, I love this. I want to be here for these people. I want to help them, and I want to learn how to do this. That's the intention going in fully. When you're in there, you also don't know any different from that. And that's what like we believe, and we follow it. And that's really it from the insider perspective of someone doing it. It's only now that I look and I read different things and I feel into, and this is what I feel the message has been this year, is trusting yourself and knowing what feels true for you. Rather than having to buy into something or take a left or a right wing or us first them or anything like that. It's like, what's right for me? Because I'm not pro-vax, anti-vax. I'm not against the medical system or pro the medical system. I'm whatever you know is right for you. And I'm not trying to be diplomatic, and I'm not trying to be evasive or ignore a question. I 100% believe that.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. But what I feel is the defining factor in that is people's ability to make their own decision based on having all the information and having all the research. I find it very, very dangerous that when people people also comment, you know, like I speak out about vaccines because I've never been vaccinated, and I'm one of the healthiest people that I know.
Yeah. Same with my partner.
And when people have commented, they'll take the vaccine just to get this whole thing over and done with, right? Yeah. With no thought of what is actually right for me, with no research. Look, I just want to get on with my life. I mean, that is dangerous. That is really, I find that very, very, that's the part that really gets to me. If people do the research, they have all the information, and they can make an informed decision for themselves and what's right for their body, what's right for their family, then I'm all for whatever they choose, pro-vax, anti-vax, whatever you want to choose. But there is no question that if the right information and the research is paid for, it's censored, it's skewed, it's manipulated, and do people have access to all the right information to make that informed decision? I don't believe so. I think that that's coming out more and more, and people now have some little insights to go, oh, let me dig a little bit deeper. And I think that that's beautiful. And I think the world is moving in the right direction in terms of information, and that, you know, coming out. I think we've got a long way to go on that, but yeah.
The thing is how do we know at what level the information is being filtered or censored if it is? That's why it really comes back to listening. And it is a vague and an intangible answer. And I know that. And I have friends who are also like in the research and the science, and they're like, please stop trying to be, I'll watch them imply to people who are talking about it, leave it up to the experts. And coming from a place where I was trained and an expert in something, I know that there was information that I didn't know. Right. And so that's what's important to remember, even if, and I've got another friend, and he's like, oh, my friend has been working and studying and researching the probabilities, the efficiency, the effectivity of vaccines for 22 years. And so he's just shaking his head and he's so confused. I completely understand that if you dedicate 22 years of your career to that. What information does he or doesn't he know? And this isn't me trying to say, like, there is something, these people are wrong, or that there's a certain, let's just say, there's a certain amount of certainty that there's lies. I think a lot of the misinformation is completely unintentional.
So do I.
I think a lot of it.
So do I.
I think that there is something somewhere, someone,
it's just
something.
institutionalized. It's just institutionalized, and then it's like.
But above them, even, I think, like, because I've been in the institutions, and even those people don't. Yeah. Their intentions are still pure. Trust me when I say that. So I think it's even bigger than that, if anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's just like, my father.
That's why so many people are offended and confused, because they're like, I do this for a living, and I'm like, I did too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's passed on from generation to generation, and then it gets lost. It's the same with, how we parent. It's, it kind of gets passed down to us, but it's up to us now in this generation to break that and look at all the versions of the truths and be open to, it's when we feel so right. We're trying to protect trying to protect our identity, because that's scary. Our ego doesn't want to give up. It doesn't want to be shaken up. It doesn't want to be rattled.
Yeah, my partner's he's a chiropractor, and his dad was a chiropractor. He's never been vaccinated in his life, and I had most of the vaccinations until I was able to choose for myself, because I grew up in a country town. It's just what we did. They came to school, we got the jab, the end. Like it's just we didn't know any better. And back to just being open to what it is that's right for you, and taking the time to figure out how you have decided what's right for you before. Like, were you actually deciding? Where did your decision-making practice come from to decide what's right for you? Was it default? Was it internally sensed? Is it self-trusting? Or are you trying to look for all this information to make decisions? And I think all of that is important to do. Information gathering, information insight, and all of that, because this is the lesson overall.
Yeah, because we have a tendency just to collect information that is just confirming our existing bias, right? And it's like, and unfortunately, where we get our news from has algorithms and intelligence to feed us exactly that. Yeah. And so, like these
5 to 7 chunks of information,
those 5 to 7 chunks of information that we have to try to filter is like so skewed to our existing bias. Yeah. And if you're not aware of that, it's like, you're just living in the matrix, and you're never going to know.
Totally. Yeah. The thing is that I've got so many, like my family are 100%. They would take the vaccination. That's what they trust. That's what they listen to. And it took me going through, and this is just my personal choice. It took me going from radiation therapy to going out to doing different research to try and, in inverted commas, wake people up or give them different information or try and make them realize or give them freedom of choice. And I've realized, I think some people are born to be in that place, in that role. For me, I realized what I found was most effective and efficient was supporting people to come back to themselves and wake that up in themselves. Yeah. Not me to do it, but me to support their process of coming back to themselves.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But I 5 years ago, I didn't have the wisdom to understand how to communicate in such a way that it wasn't righteous and it wasn't arrogant and it wasn't making people wrong. So now I'm hyper aware that how I communicate is inclusive. It's inclusive, and it's not making people wrong. And I'm sure I don't always get it right, and sometimes I'm very aggressive about my message. But I do try as much as possible to, and that's what the whole point of this podcast is. It's like I'm speaking about so many different things. I spoke to a carnivore, and then the next week I spoke to a vegan, and it's like I'm not aligned to any one thing. I'm aligned to showing people all the information so that they can gather everything and make their own informed decisions about what's right for them.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because that's the practice overall, and it ripples through every area of our life, whether it's got to do with what we're talking about or anything. Yeah.
I've got two more questions for you.
Okay.
Second last question is, how do people make a difference in the world?
Again, I don't know if country girl Ginger Amber Marie Hawken has the answer for everybody for this. And in my experience, what I have seen is the simplicity of when you come back in that place of yourself that we've been talking about and pointing to, that sounds evasive. Your expression from that place is a gift.
That expression is the inspiration. That's what touches people. When you can touch people without touching them, I think that's it.
Ever met like someone in a random country at an airport, at a cafe that changed your life because of who they were?
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Again, it's like such simple answers, but we so overcomplicate things. But I think that's the beautiful thing about this conversation is like to give people insight to just how much we overcomplicate things, and to bring it back to breath, bring it back to presence, and that's the big reminder.
The ego wants to fight it and make it hard. Can't be that easy. Don't be ridiculous. Part of us will get offended by that.
Yeah.
No, I've worked hard to find my problems.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's been my pattern, is working really hard. I had my first business when I was 8, and it's like there's a lot of unraveling in that. What led me to success being hard work and hustle, and unraveling that to realize that it's in the stillness that I can create more. It's like that's taken a lot of work to unravel that. Yeah. Okay, one last question before I do that. I want to make sure everybody's got access to you, and Instagram is your preferred platform. You were talking, we were talking about the videos before, and you've even got a daily. You got a little mini program for people.
Yeah, it's a 10-day challenge. I was slipping on my practices recently, Monty, and I was like, I like accountability. I wonder who will do this with me. So I threw it out there, and a couple of hundred people later were like, I'll join. So I made a little private Instagram group. So we're just getting together 6:30 a.m. Queensland time, doing a morning practice with breathing and meditation, but then I'm leaving it up. So I'm going to do it for 10 days. Anyone who feels like they want to get into that and learn some really basic, easy stuff, I'm often in my pajamas.
So they could,
no frills.
They could do it themselves in their own time.
In their own time, 100%, whatever, because you just go in and you just go to, because the lives that I did, I downloaded the 15-minute practice and I reposted it as a post. So you just start at replay day 1. That's it. And then you just work your way through it. We're only up to day 2.
So what are people going to get out of the 10-day challenge?
I called it Supercharge Daily because a bigger program of mine called Supercharge, which is for 90 days. One of the foundational practices are your practices. So I'm just doing what I do every day in a really casual way. Like this morning, I did some circular breathing times 10. Yesterday, I did some coherent breathing and a meditation. These really simple, basic, but foundational things that shift you back into balance, shift you back into harmony within yourself, so that you're going from an energy of where you want to go to and living from there. So that's what it will teach you over 10 days. And beautiful. It's really simple.
Awesome. Guys, make sure you go check that out. And are you still running, you're running retreats at the moment? You're still running that? Tell us about
Twice
that.
a year.
Twice a year. Okay.
Yep.
Is that in Australia, or you do it around the world?
Well, I was previously doing it around the world, but currently we're back in Australia, which is fantastic and beautiful. So Queensland or Northern New South Wales. Next one's in April. We just had one 2 weeks ago. Cool.
All right. I'll make sure everybody's got the links to you and the 10-day challenge, and goes and follows you. So I've got one final question, but before I do that, just want to acknowledge you again. I think you're doing a really amazing work. I love how you've weaved all this wisdom from formal medical background to these different modalities, and your consistent devotion to the study and learning more and integrating more things. And it really shines through that you don't think you know it all. You're still on the journey. You're still learning, and you've definitely got some tools and some practices that can really help people. And especially in that self-empowerment and sovereignty, as we spoke about. So I acknowledge you for the work that you're doing. It's really beautiful.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay, one last question. If you had a one-time superpower of being able to connect, telepathically with every 7.8 billion or whatever it is on the planet now, and leave them with one short message, what would that message be?
I'd tell them to breathe coherently because they'll find everything from there. That's my belief. Yep. You'll find everything from there. I was going to say you're what you're looking for, but that's not even it. Just breathe, because you'll realize that yourself then.
Yeah. And I love how you just breathed into that.
It's a habit.
Awesome. Amber, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, make sure you go check out Amber and, definitely get involved in that 10-day challenge. Amber Hawken, thank you so much. Guys, tune in again for the next edition of The Rabbit Hole. And, make sure you go check out Amber. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Monty.